Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 215. Subscribe to our mailing list to receive weekly updates and exclusive content delivered right to your inbox. Go to drfrancesrichards.com. That's drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. That's drfrancesrichards.com, drfrancesrichards.com to subscribe to our mailing list and be entered into our monthly drawing. We promise we won't spam you or sell your information. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black entrepreneur experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. A mathematician by trade, a school leader turned entrepreneur, a travel enthusiast, and author. She sourced talent from Africa to support small businesses in U.S. and Europe. Welcome, Chandell Stone, owner of Stone Solutions.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Given our audience such a brief bio, why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your company?
Yeah, so I think something that's important to know about me, and I think kind of serves as a foundation for my story, is that from the Bronx, I grew up with two loving parents who, they weren't in the same household, but they were very adamant about me being a hustler and being independent and forging my own path. So it started really early. I don't know if maybe your listeners probably remember LimeWire. I used to make like the little like mixtape CDs and stuff when I was in middle school and like sell them. And I was always like had like a hustler spirit and like wanted to figure out ways to start my own business and make money, even though my teachers did not appreciate that. And they told me I had to stop selling CDs at school. But I think that was just, the start to who I am now as a person and the type of things that motivate me. And my parents always encouraged that. And went to North Carolina A&amp, which is a historically Black college, and I studied math. But I think in addition to the importance of studying at a historically Black college, and all of the like identity affirmation that came out of that and the like support structure that sort of built into a place like that. Something else that came out of that experience that I think is sort of foundational to where I sit now is that I had the opportunity to travel abroad for the first time while I was in college. And I studied abroad in India for 5 months. And again, that was my first time out the country. So that was like baptism by fire, but it sparked a passion for travel and led to why I wanted to launch my first company, Destination Impact. I guess it makes it my second company since my CD business might have been my first one. So yeah, I studied abroad in India. And from there, I think I was like forever wanted to continue figuring out ways to learn more about other cultures, expose other people to it, especially growing up low income, knowing a lot of my friends like maybe never even left the state, let alone the country and let alone a place like India as opposed to like Jamaica or like, a place that people go on cruises. And so when I started Destination Impact, part of it was about being able to support underserved communities, but also another piece of it was just like wanting to expose young Black professionals or young people of color in general to a different way of travel and a different, like potentially a perspective on their lives from traveling to places that are a little bit less trodden. And so we launched Destination Impact in 2014. At the same time, I was a high school teacher in Harlem. So it worked out really nicely because I got to spend my summers traveling with friends and making a difference. And so I think that Destination Impact has kind of been on both sides of the coin. We've been able to fund scholarships for teachers in Kenya. We've built a children's library, pre-children's library. We've funded water projects, greenhouses, a greenhouse, donated hundreds of school supplies across the diaspora. But then additionally, the folks who go on our trips, almost overwhelmingly make reference to the fact that they feel like the life-changing experience, which sounds really dramatic, for people who haven't traveled through the developing world, and not just to see it for its poverty, which is what I think people often feel like they are doing, like indulging in poverty porn, if you will, or just seeing how bad it is so you can feel good about yourself. It's actually quite the contrary. Like our trips are designed to show the beauty within each place and to serve as another source of identity affirmation for people to not just see Kenya and think about the slums, but think about like how Nairobi is like a buzzing metropolis, how innovative the Maasai people are, how beautiful the safaris are, how nice the people are, how good the food is. Like that, those are the takeaways that we want people to have. And it just restructures the way people think about the continent, which subsequently I think restructures the way they think about themselves. And we launched Stone Solutions in 2018. Stone Solutions was born out of a similar idea, just around how do we like lift up communities of color. And Stone Solutions, when I was through Destination Impact, we would meet tons of people in the community, especially in Kenya, because that's our flagship location. And a lot of people were overqualified for the roles that they were in, right? Your cab driver would have an engineering degree. Your like the person waiting the tables, like studied biology. Like that's just like what's happening in Kenya because there's a lot of unemployment. And one of the tour guides who's worked with Destination Impact since its inception, we were just happened to be chatting, and I found out they used to work for the CDC and like has all this IT experience, et cetera. And I was just like, you know what, you should, we gotta figure something out. And around that time, I'd actually decided to take a sabbatical from my job and to travel. And I decided to launch Stone Solutions to see like how we could connect folks in Kenya with opportunities in the States or in Europe, et cetera, given that there's so many people with all of these skills. And I think that like the outsourcing industry I know that it's totally skipped over the continent and gone to Asia as though Africa is only good for handouts and not good for like job opportunity, which I think is probably steeped in some sort of like racist, like implicit bias towards Black people. But nonetheless, we've been able to grow. It started just that small with just like Fanwell, who I pretty much almost consider a co-founder. Started with him and I looking for opportunities to tap into executive assistant type work. And now we have about 7 employees in Stone Solutions and work with a number of companies. And have worked with companies ranging from schools to with solo entrepreneurs, startups, et cetera, which has been really, really cool and expanded our offerings significantly from just the typical executive assistant stuff. And so, those are like 2, I think, of my most proudest, like biggest projects that I've worked on. And, what's on the horizon is we're in the process of launching Dumia Collegiate, which will be a charter school in Atlanta that will serve grades 4 through 8. And I'm also a lead designer on a hybrid college program based in Vermont called Degrees of Freedom. So lots of projects all connected to this idea of supporting communities of color and in addressing what you had mentioned before, Dr. Francis, of just this opportunity gap that exists within our community, both here and abroad.
Chandell, you talked about the various projects you're working on and that you took a sabbatical from teaching. Are you still teaching?
So when I took a sabbatical, at that point, I was actually a school leader, and I took a sabbatical from that. I was a school leader in the Bronx at that time. And right now, I'm far from a sabbatical. I have way too much stuff going on. There's nothing relaxing about this year. Trying to launch 2 schools and kind of oversee 2 other companies as well.
So when you're launching the 2 schools, is that personal or is that for another company?
In 2019, while I was traveling the world and I think doing a lot of like self-exploration and really reflecting on my time in the education space, I really felt like there was a lot that our schools are lacking. in terms of how they approach anti-racism, how we approach teaching children about themselves and their history, how we connect that to them being strong academics and intellectuals, like connecting their identity to that as opposed to connecting it to trying to like navigate a white dominant world. So I basically like envision this idea of what that school could be and look like, in that school is going to be junior collegiate. And so I obtained some grant funding to launch that school in Atlanta and have a wonderful board of people from Atlanta, community members, community leaders from Atlanta who are supporting me in that work. And then with the college or the higher education program, Degrees of Freedom, I was brought onto this project to support the design for the school because, as you know, higher education just does not serve first generation and low income students well. It's not affordable, it's not flexible, it's not inclusive, and it often leaves our students with a ton of debt and not as many opportunities as they should. And so I'm working on this team to help them design a college that is going to really meet the needs of low-income students in color.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or business that's dominating that you admire and why.
I don't know that I have a specific one in mind, but I think like a trend that I really love is this like, I don't know. Even though I am not a big social media fan, like I barely post, like I'm not that into it. I really, the like Black travel brands that are on social media, like your Black travel pages, your Travel Noir, your influencers who are like promoting Black travel in general. Like those are the types of brands that I really like. The ones that kind of juxtapose Black Americans or Black Europeans in Asia and all these different like cool and interesting places, because I think it's really aspirational and something that's worth aspiring for, which on the internet, there's not a lot of things that we should be aspiring for. So I feel like I really love those types of brands.
Speaking of Black travel, talk about Black travel pivot in COVID-19.
Well, that it's hard to pivot that one. It just ain't right now. Travel is at a standstill. I mean, I do a little bit of traveling, but I don't like to promote it because I don't want people to feel like I'm promoting people being all over the place. I just have like an addiction, and if I don't leave, I'll go crazy. So I think what most people, at least what we've been doing with our clients is just building community. So, we're sending out newsletters. We're trying to host like Zoom parties and things like that to still help people feel connected. That's, I think, was more important for us, like in the beginning when COVID first started. And now I think people have Zoom fatigue, so they don't want to have Zoom parties. And I think we want to like just respect that and not continue to like push things on people. And when they're ready, then we'll be waiting.
What are you most grateful for right now in your life?
I'm grateful for my support system. I'm grateful for like family and friends and people who have been putting up with me through all of the crazy ideas and the traveling and the not knowing where I'm going, where I am, what I'm doing next. I mean, my parents are pretty old school when they think about like work is and what it's supposed to be. And I am not doing that. They're like, you went and got a math degree, you've been making all this money, and now you're going to go help the kids. Now you don't want to help the kids. Now you want to travel. Now you want to make this business. Chandell, what are you doing? It's not been a very linear path. And I think that it could be easy to get discouraged, especially if you don't see like if you can't see your way all the way to the finish line and don't have like a really nice grand master plan to share with everyone. And I think that my family has let me like step into my own and so have my friends, and they've been really patient and supportive of me throughout this process. So that's definitely something that I'm grateful for.
What problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve, Chandell?
There's so many problems, and I'm one of those lefty liberals that know about all the problems, the climate change. So this is what I do. I'm on the climate change, the anti-racism, the opportunity gap, the education gap, the refugee crisis, there's too many things I can't even name, but the one that I feel like I have the most agency to change is education. And that's why I've kind of dug my heels into that type of work. And because it is transformative, and in order for us to really change the prospect of what the future looks like for Black women, for Latinas, for Indigenous people, Indigenous women, it's going to have to be a multifaceted approach. It won't just be education, right? It'll be education plus jobs, plus this, plus that. And so I think if everyone just like picks their thing, picks their lane, and like pushes forward, that we can make some real, progress.
Advice you wish you had followed?
That's a hard one. In general, I don't follow advice. I'm one of those people that have to learn by doing. And normally if you tell me not to do it, I'm just going to do it anyway. So it's like I've gotten so much advice over the years, it's hard for me to remember which one was actually sage advice. And normally stop trying to tell me, let me just do my thing. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Let's step back a moment. Talk about your worst moment in business and what was your takeaway?
Worst moment in business. I would say that because when you are trying to do all these different things, you're going to have plenty. So I'll give you one. I think that when I'm the type of person that, actually I wouldn't go on a destination impact trip. It doesn't fit my personality because I'm a type I don't like planning things. And so having a properly planned schedule for a week of travel is just it's not something that I would do, but there's so many people who need that. They like structure. They're not the type of people who will just book a flight, have no accommodations. I do stuff like that, right? I'll book a flight. I'll plan to travel somewhere for 3 weeks. I'll book a hotel for 2 days out of that. And people are like, well, what are you doing? I don't know. I'll figure it out, right? And so me being that type of person and trying to do a nicely planned trip for other people, when I first started, I was terrible at it because I would just miss all the details and I would just feel like people shouldn't care that much about it. Things like we had people going on safari and I didn't disclose that you weren't that all the power was going to shut off at 7 p.m. and you weren't going to have any contact with the outside world. And I've gotten cussed out for that. Yeah, I've gotten some very angry travelers that are like, no, you will not have me in the middle of the jungle and there are animals and lions and I don't have any service and you didn't tell me. So yeah, I think those are the moments when you're like, okay, all right, when you put it like that, I should have told y'all, right? So I think very early on with the travel experiences, we made a lot of mistakes. And I was building something for myself instead of building something for my customers. And once I changed my mindset, I've gotten a lot better at that, and we're a lot more detailed with the plans and things that we give people. But yeah, I definitely got my earful from not being detail oriented when I first started my company.
Chandell, talk about your most memorable moment in life or business.
I think the most memorable is, maybe it's because it's most recent, was in September of last year. I brought both my parents to Kenya, and I told you before, my parents aren't together. And so, first off, just having them on the same trip for 7 days was partially a miracle, but also because that was my mom's first time out of the country and that was my dad's first time in Africa. And so it was just a really dope moment for me because my parents know how much I've traveled and how much I've been in Kenya, and I almost have a whole Kenya family there or whatever. And that's just two worlds that are very disconnected. And again, I think my parents to some degree think I just be, just floating around, playing around. They don't know that this is it's a real thing. I create jobs. Hello, y'all. This is real. And went to Kenya. They had the opportunity to see it firsthand. And it was also kind of cool to be I took my parents to Africa and and they got to see what the work that we're doing and got to hear from communities that Destination Impact has. And I felt they were really proud of me and they finally validated that I wasn't running an imaginary business. And that was really nice.
That is such a cool story because when I hear you tell the story, it's you went into become a mathematician. You are a mathematician, and math is exact. 1+1 = 2. It's not going to change. But here it is. You're this amazing, free-spirited woman. And when you talked about the disconnect between Kenya and the United States, and you brought that together, and then you talked about your parents and you brought them together at a moment to just not only validate you, you were already validated, but in their minds validated that our young little girl, as they would say, is going to be okay. So that's an amazing story.
Thank you. And I think also powerful too, because my parents are like the type of people that I was designing for when I created this experience. Like my dad asked me, were we going to be staying in a hut? And I was like, oh man, please do not tell anybody else that. So, it's again, like changing their perspective on Africa. And I think in there for themselves. Like I just remember like my parents in the car, like we're driving down the street and they're like, man, like, this is what it would be like if like Black people had their own country. Yes, we do. We have lots of our own countries. People like, and there's just I often get into these debates / conversations, especially with Black immigrants in America about, why are the outcomes so different for Black Americans and Black immigrants within the U.S., right? I don't know if people are aware of this, but like there's an overrepresentation, for example, of Nigerian Americans, especially on Wall Street or as business owners or even within college. There's a lot of research that shows that like of the Black, student college going population, a high percentage of that, they are not, African American, as we would, like in the same sense that I would consider myself, right? Like I'm an 8th, 9th generation American. A large percentage of it are people who are 1st and 2nd gen Black immigrants, which is not a problem, but it doesn't capture, like, I think that we haven't made the progress that I think sometimes that people tout for us, and that's something that we need to be aware of. And, when we have this conversation about why certain groups are achieving more than ours, it's about perspective, and it's about like how we view opportunity. And for us to be in the country that our people were enslaved in, that our legacy has sort of been like tarnished by these like oppressive systems here, and we have felt disconnected from Africa or from our roots. It's really hard to like see the possibilities and see the opportunities. As a young child growing up in the Bronx or growing up in any, low-income neighborhood in the U.S., you can't even like imagine a world where everyone from the president down to the janitor looks like you, right? And that does matter. And so even though it's not happening in America, when Black people go to Africa and they see that, it's a game changer. Like it's a game changer on what they may feel like is possible for themselves, for our community, for Black people as a whole, and like where their opportunities lie. I mean, now my dad's talking about getting a retirement home in Kenya. I'm like, okay, you went one time, you need to relax. But it just is like a testament to like, again, how that experience really changes people.
Speaking of legacy, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the disruptor. I want to be remembered as the girl who started good trouble and who like stopped at nothing to see Black people especially succeed. Whether I'm successful or not in doing that is in God's hands, but at least I want my intent to be known, and that's a legacy that I'm comfortable with.
What are you reading now, or what book would you recommend?
So, warning, I am in true mathematician style. I am like I'm a dry read. I love a good nonfiction. I don't read any like cute, like those types of books. I read the hard stuff all the time. I don't take a break. So right now I'm reading, what is the Triple Package? I'm like halfway through that. I'm reading Medical Apartheid, not a light book. I'm reading, I can't remember, there's something in the Spider and the Starfish. Is about like collaborative leadership. Yeah, those are the three that I have right now. None of them are nice type books.
Chandell, what can we do right now to support your businesses?
So I would say like the projects that we're looking to grow right now are in the grow phase are definitely Stone Solutions. So people who are interested in having an executive assistant or project management or any sort of things that can be done digitally. Like our team is really talented and has a lot of different skills, social media, branding, etc. And so you can check our website out at stonesolutions.me. Degrees of Freedom. We're launching a pilot in January, and so for students will be able to take college courses at a really low rate and try out some really interesting like online technology. And then we're doing our official launch in September 2021. And Degrees of Freedom is an awesome program that's going to be hybrid, really career focused, really culturally responsive, ensuring that students are being adequately supported to be successful in either, graduate in continuing their education, potentially at a 4-year institution, or to get a terminal degree, or they can walk right into a career and be successful. So those are, I think, like the two projects that are in the growth stage right now.
Is there a social cause connected to your business?
Can you elaborate on what you mean by social cost?
Like some people, I know that you do a lot of building in, communities. And so like some people, they dedicate or they spend a lot of their time, putting pencils on the table or, shoes or water or, any social cause that is, or like heart problems or health. Is there one specific cause that is tied to your companies or company?
I think the social cause that is a common thread throughout all of the projects is equity, racial equity especially, but primarily a focus on education, with the exception of Stone Solutions, which I think is just more so focused on that opportunity gap by connecting VAs in East Africa with companies in the US and Europe.
What do you need right now that you don't have that would help you to move your needle forward?
I think funding is always helpful. Everybody always needs funding. That is an opportunity to expand on the Degrees of Freedom side. Having access to more funding would allow us to do more scholarship opportunities for students, be a little bit more innovative with our approaches to online learning. These platforms that we're building are not cheap, so having funding on that end would definitely support the work. And then with Stone Solutions, I actually feel like, obviously, if someone wants to like drop a bag of money off, I can give you my address, but I don't think that like I'm interested in like having investor or like a VC person or whatever. I think that like the rate at which we're scaling feels responsible and feels responsive to our customers. And I think that sometimes we maybe over sensationalize this idea of like this capital raising thing, because a lot of Black women, female entrepreneurs are doing it without it, are able to build their companies. And I think I'm one of them who was able to like bootstrap it with I would say smaller amount of money than people might assume, and just be really smart and savvy about how we spend.
What keeps you up at night, if anything?
Well, all these businesses definitely keep me up. But I think if we're talking about like an issue or a cause or whatever, it is this election that is imminent. That definitely is something that keeps me up at night. I think that the way this election is going to go is going to determine a lot more for people than, I won't say than they think. I hope everyone knows how important this election is and the importance of us casting our vote and like just engaging in this political process, even though it feels really messy and like cheap and not the way that we expect a presidential election to go. But it's what we have, and we got to work with it, and we have to think long term about the future of this country. And that is definitely something that I lie awake at night thinking about.
Who are your top 2 influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
Again, I don't think I can pinpoint a particular person, but I think that like what influences me is just like seeing other successful Black women. Like anytime I see something come across my feed or my email about a Black woman who started this or a Black woman who launched that, I get into stalker mode. I go find them on LinkedIn. I want to find their backstory. Like I just like want to be in company of successful Black women, like, you know, businesses large and small. Like I'm always just like really excited by like Black women doing their thing. They are my source of inspiration as a unit.
Chandell, how do you feel about the woman you have become?
I think she's all right. I think I've accomplished a lot more than I would have thought that I would have accomplished by this age. But at the same time, like see a lot of for growth in who I am as a person. It's not, you know, just about professional. And like, I think sometimes people will weigh the magnitude of a person by some of their like professional accomplishments. But I'm, you know, one of those people who care a lot about like family, how you treat the people around you, help others on a personal level. And I think that like I want to continue to grow in that way and have as many personal accomplishments as I do professional.
Talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger you?
I would tell myself to stop stressing over everything. I think everyone tells their younger self that. It's like hindsight is 2020. You're like, oh, just don't worry about it. But I think I did a lot of like trying to over plan when I was younger. Like, I want to have this job by 23 and this job by 30 and make this amount of money and have this kind of man and this many kids and like all the whole plan. And then as I'm getting older, realizing that that was cute, but you're not in as much control as you think you are. And so just like put one foot in front of the other, do the right thing, and then the right things will come to you.
Chandell, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
I think this is entrepreneurship for everyone. A lot of people see the work that I'm doing and I think a lot of younger people are really excited by this idea of being their own business person or their own business owner. And there's like status that's associated with like running your own thing and not working for anyone. And I guess I would just want to like say that entrepreneurship is actually, I don't think it's for everyone. And that's not a bad thing. And that's not an elitist thing. It's just about like different skills. And I don't think that people should like measure their own like professional worth over whether or not they're able to like launch their own business, because it's really hard. And it's also sometimes a lot easier and potentially more financially rewarding. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with working for another company or, you know, growing within an existing business in place. And I think that like vision that people have in their mind that they have to like quit their job and start their business, or like do it in these really like abrupt and weird way. And entrepreneurship, like something that people should know is that a lot of people who start their own businesses start them as like a side project, and like don't overcomplicate it and like give yourself these unreasonable goals that match what you see people doing on social media, because it's actually like not real. Most people have that full-time job that pays their bills. There's nothing wrong with that. There's merit in that. And then they do their business on the side and they see if it grows. And then if it doesn't grow, that's okay. That doesn't make you a failure or anything like that. Just be patient with yourself. If the first business doesn't work out, that's okay. Next year, try to start another one. And it doesn't have to be something that takes over your full-time job. I think we're like in this culture now where everybody wants to be seen as like their own like mogul and like all of that. And I think that like mindset can be a bit dangerous because I think people then are kind of in it for the wrong reasons. Like start a business not because you feel like it looks cool to say that you run your own thing, but start a business because like you're really passionate about getting this particular thing out there and no one else is doing it. No one else is going to do it the way you can do it, or you can't see yourself like doing any other thing. And like, if that's not the case, like it is also fine and validating to join someone else who's doing it and like build together. Because I think like collectivism is a really important mindset to have, and people joining up together and joining forces with other Black women or other Black organizations to create something greater is something that's also really important and valuable, as opposed to everyone just kind of being in their own silos, doing their own thing. I don't even think I answered my own question well. But I don't know. I just feel like this is something that I always mention because I'm like, my little cousin is a like, I want to launch my own business. I don't want to get a job. I want to launch my, it's like, come on, slow down. Like there's a way, there's a process. And also being an entrepreneur is not like an elitist thing. It's just another job like every other job.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and I want you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
Yep.
The last movie you saw?
I just watched a movie last night and I can't remember the name of it. The Idris Elba one where he was a CIA agent in Paris. I don't remember the name.
You relax doing what?
Painting my nails.
Hit the gym or hit the couch?
Definitely the couch. Twice.
What food you eat every week no matter what?
Pancakes.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Beyonce.
Your favorite dance song?
Something Megan Thee Stallion, I'm sure.
Your first job?
Panera Bread.
Chandell, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and do business with you? And don't hesitate to give all your social media handles.
If folks want to get connected with me, they can check out any of our websites, destinationimpact.com, stonesolutions.me, Dunia Collegiate, which is hard to spell, so DUNIACOLLEGIATE.org, degreesofreedom.org. I'm there on all of those places. I'm actually not a big social media person, so I won't throw out a bunch of social media handles, but any of those websites, LinkedIn, I'm like the only Chandells Stone, so very Googleable from that standpoint. I look forward to connecting with anyone who's interested in the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Chandell. That's a wrap.
All right. Thank you.
Our guests have sent us so much swag, books, and giveaways this year. I can't wait to announce our monthly winner. So if you want exclusive content delivered right to your inbox and to enter into our monthly drawing, go to drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. That's drfrancisrichards.com. drfrancisrichards.com. That's drfrancisrichards.com and subscribe to our mailing list. We promise we will not spam you or sell your information.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.